The forest was eerily silent, the kind of quiet that made every footstep sound like thunder. Alex Carter moved cautiously, his boots crunching softly against the alien ground. The air smelled strange, metallic, and sharp, unlike anything he had ever experienced on Earth. Around him, the trees loomed tall and twisted, their branches curling unnaturally toward the dim purple sky. His squad was spread out in a loose formation, scanning the area for any sign of movement. They had been sent to this planet to investigate unusual energy readings, but so far, all they had found was an unsettling emptiness. Alex tightened his grip on his rifle, his eyes darting between the shadows. Something about this place felt wrong. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Keep it tight," whispered Lieutenant Harper, her voice barely audible over the hum of their equipment. She was a no-nonsense leader, always calm under pressure, but even she seemed uneasy. Behind her, Private Ryan muttered something about wanting to get off this rock as soon as possible. No one laughed. The tension was too thick for jokes. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the forest. It wasn't loud, but it vibrated deep in their chests, making their hearts race. Alex froze, his finger hovering over the trigger of his weapon. "What was that?" asked Corporal Blake, his voice tinged with panic. Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath them began to shift. Roots erupted from the soil, twisting and writhing like living things. The squad scattered, shouting orders and firing blindly into the chaos. Then they appeared, the aliens. Tall, insect-like creatures with elongated limbs and glowing green eyes. Their exoskeletons shimmered faintly, reflecting the dim light of the alien sun. They moved with unnatural speed, their clawed hands slicing through the air. The humans fired their weapons, but the bullets seemed to have little effect, bouncing harmlessly off the creatures' armored bodies. One by one, the squad members fell, overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of their attackers. Alex fought desperately, dodging and weaving as the aliens closed in around him. He managed to take down 2 of them with well-placed shots to their glowing eyes, but more kept coming. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Lieutenant Harper go down, her weapon knocked from her hands. He wanted to help her, but there was no time. The aliens were everywhere, swarming like insects. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Alex spotted an opening. A narrow gap between 2 of the towering trees led deeper into the forest. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward it, ducking under grasping claws and leaping over tangled roots. Behind him, he could hear the aliens giving chase, their chittering cries filling the air. His heart pounded in his chest as he pushed himself harder than ever before. For a moment, he thought he might actually escape. But then, just as he reached a clearing, the ground gave way beneath him. He landed hard on his back, the wind knocked out of him. Before he could recover, the aliens were on him, their glowing eyes staring down at him with cold curiosity. One of them grabbed him by the arm, its grip like iron. Alex struggled, but it was no use. He was outnumbered and outmatched. As they dragged him away, Alex caught one last glimpse of the forest. It was beautiful in a strange, haunting way, but he knew he might never see it, or Earth, again. The aliens exchanged clicks and hisses, their language incomprehensible but clearly mocking. Alex clenched his jaw, refusing to show fear. He didn't know what they had planned for him, but one thing was certain. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Alex woke up with a throbbing headache, his body aching from the rough landing on the alien ship. The room was dimly lit, the walls glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. He blinked several times, trying to focus. His hands were bound tightly behind his back with some kind of glowing rope that pulsed softly, almost like it was alive. Alex tested the restraints, but they didn't budge. Whatever they were made of, it was stronger than anything he'd encountered before. The floor beneath him was cold and smooth, unlike anything he'd ever felt. He shifted slightly, wincing as pain shot through his side. It was then that he noticed the barrier in front of him. a transparent wall that shimmered faintly. Beyond it, two aliens stood watching him. They were tall and insect-like, their long limbs moving with unnatural precision. Their eyes glowed with a green light that seemed to pierce right through him. One of them tilted its head, clicking its mandibles in what Alex guessed was amusement. "Well, look at this," said one of the aliens, its voice crackling like static. "A little human, all alone." Its words came out distorted, but somehow understandable. Alex frowned, refusing to respond. He didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing him scared or angry. The second alien stepped closer, its claws tapping against the barrier. "They're so fragile," it sneered, its tone mocking. "How did such weak creatures survive for so long?" Alex clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay calm. He had been trained for situations like this, to keep his emotions in check and observe everything around him. These aliens clearly thought they were superior, but Alex knew better than to underestimate them, or himself. He studied their movements, noting how they gestured with their clawed hands and how their glowing eyes flickered when they spoke. Every detail could be useful later. "Not talking?" the first alien asked, leaning closer to the barrier. "Maybe you don't understand us." It let out a series of sharp clicks, which sounded suspiciously like laughter. "Or maybe you're just too stupid." Alex finally spoke, his voice steady despite the situation. "I understand you fine," he said, "but I'm not wasting my breath on someone who thinks laughing at me makes them smarter." The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Then the second one leaned forward, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You think you're brave, don't you? But bravery won't save you here. You're nothing but prey." Before Alex could respond, a soft sound caught his attention. It was faint, almost like a whisper, coming from somewhere nearby. He glanced around, trying to locate the source. The aliens didn't seem to notice, too busy mocking him to pay attention to anything else. Then, from the shadows of the adjacent cell, a voice emerged. "Don't listen to them," it said quietly. "They love hearing themselves talk." Alex turned his head sharply, spotting a figure sitting cross-legged on the floor of the neighboring cell. It was a woman, her face pale but determined. She looked exhausted, her dark hair tangled and matted, but there was a spark of defiance in her eyes. "Who are you?" Alex asked. "Mia," she replied simply. "And you're lucky they haven't killed you yet." "Lucky?" Alex raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call this?" Mia gave a small, humorless smile. "Trust me, I've been here long enough to know how they operate. They think humans are simple, easy to break, but they're wrong." Her words intrigued Alex. "How long have you been here?" "Months," Mia admitted. "They took me while I was studying space anomalies near Earth's orbit. At first, I thought I'd never make it out alive. But then I started learning about them, how arrogant they are, how careless. That's why you're still breathing." The aliens outside the barrier continued to chatter among themselves, oblivious to the conversation happening just a few feet away. Alex leaned closer to Mia, keeping his voice low. "What do you mean by careless?" "They underestimate us," Mia explained. "Their technology is advanced, but it's not perfect. I've been finding ways to mess with it. Small things, like disabling locks or causing power fluctuations. They don't even realize it's sabotage." Alex nodded slowly, a plan beginning to form in his mind. If Mia was right, then these aliens weren't as invincible as they seemed. And if they thought he was just another helpless prisoner, they were in for a rude awakening. "You might actually be useful," Mia added, her tone lighter now. "If we work together, we might stand a chance." Alex glanced back at the aliens, who were still laughing and jeering. For the first time since his capture, he felt a flicker of hope. These creatures thought they had the upper hand, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. The hum of the alien ship echoed through the cells, a constant reminder that Alex and Mia were far from home. Alex sat quietly, his mind racing as he processed everything Mia had told him. These aliens, arrogant, overconfident, and careless, had no idea what they were up against. Humans weren't just survivors, they were fighters. And Alex was determined to prove it. Mia leaned closer to the barrier separating their cells, her voice barely above a whisper. "Listen carefully," she said. "Their arrogance is our advantage. They think we're helpless, so they don't bother watching us closely. That's how I've been able to sabotage small parts of their systems." Alex nodded, his eyes scanning the room for any weaknesses. "What have you done so far?" he asked. "Little things," Maya replied. "I've caused minor power outages in this section of the ship. Once, I even managed to unlock my cell door for a few seconds before they noticed. But I can't do much on my own. If we work together, we might be able to do something bigger." Alex thought for a moment. "Do you know where the main control room is?" Mia hesitated, then pointed toward the ceiling. "Somewhere above us. I've heard them talking about it when they pass by. It's heavily guarded, but if we can get there, we could disable their engines or send a distress signal to Earth." Alex's heart raced at the idea. A plan was forming in his mind, but it would require precision and luck. "We'll need a distraction," he said, "something big enough to draw them away from here." Mia smiled faintly. "Leave that to me. I've been working on something that might help." Before Alex could ask what she meant, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. The two aliens who had mocked him earlier appeared, their glowing eyes fixed on Alex. One of them, the taller one, clicked its mandibles and tilted its head. "Still alive, little human," it sneered. "Impressive. Most of your kind would have broken by now." Alex forced himself to stay calm, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "You haven't given me much reason to break," he said evenly. The second alien laughed, a sharp grating sound. "He thinks he's clever," it said. "Maybe we should show him just how weak he really is." Mia tensed beside him, but Alex didn't react. He knew better than to rise to their taunts. Instead, he focused on their movements, noting how they carried themselves and how their claws twitched when they spoke. Every detail mattered. The taller alien stepped closer to the barrier, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You humans are strange," it said. "Even when you're trapped, you act like you still have hope. Do you really believe someone will come to save you?" Alex smirked, surprising even himself. "Hope keeps us going," he said. "But maybe you're underestimating us because you're afraid." The alien hissed, clearly irritated. "Afraid? Of you? Don't make me laugh." Behind the barrier, Mia rolled her eyes. Alex caught her glance and gave a subtle nod. She understood what he was doing, buying time while keeping the aliens distracted. It was working. Finally, the aliens grew bored and turned to leave. As they walked away, Maya leaned close again. "Now's our chance," she whispered. "I'll trigger the distraction in a few minutes. When the lights go out, move fast." Alex nodded, his pulse quickening. Whatever Mia had planned, he trusted her instincts. For the first time since his capture, he felt a flicker of control. These aliens thought they had won, but they had no idea what was coming. A few moments later, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the blue glow of the walls flickered before plunging into darkness. Alex sprang into action, feeling along the edges of his restraints until he found the glowing rope loosening slightly. Mia had done her part. Now it was his turn. As the emergency lights flickered back on, Alex broke free, his muscles burning from the effort. He glanced at Mia, who was already working on her own bindings. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Together, they slipped out of their cells, moving quickly through the shadows. The aliens were scrambling to restore order, their confidence shaken. Alex allowed himself a small smile. This was only the beginning. The narrow corridors of the alien ship were eerily quiet now, save for the faint hum of machinery and the distant sound of panicked clicks from the aliens. Alex moved cautiously, his senses on high alert. Beside him, Maya stayed close, her steps light and deliberate. Both of them knew they didn't have much time. The aliens would recover soon, and when they did, they wouldn't be as careless as before. "Which way?" Alex whispered, glancing down the dimly lit hallway. The walls pulsed faintly with an orange glow, casting strange shadows that made it hard to focus. "This way," Maya replied, pointing toward a set of spiraling stairs leading upward. "The control room should be near the top. I've heard them mention it during patrols." Alex nodded and followed her lead, gripping his makeshift weapon tightly, a broken piece of metal he'd snatched from the floor of his cell. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. As they climbed the stairs, the air grew warmer, almost stifling. The ship's organic design seemed to pulse around them, like they were inside some massive living creature. Alex tried not to think about it too much. Focusing on survival was hard enough without imagining the walls closing in. When they reached the top, Maya stopped abruptly, holding up a hand to signal silence. Ahead, two aliens stood guard outside a large, circular door. Their glowing eyes scanned the area lazily, clearly not expecting trouble. Alex leaned closer to Mia, whispering, "How do we get past them?" Mia thought for a moment, then pointed to a panel on the wall nearby. "That looks like a control panel. If I can disable it, the door might open automatically. They'll react, but it'll give you a chance to act." Alex frowned. "And what happens if they catch you messing with it?" "They won't," Maya said firmly. "Just be ready." Before Alex could argue, Mia darted forward, staying low and using the shadows to mask her movements. She reached the panel and began working quickly, her fingers moving over the glowing symbols with surprising confidence. Alex watched nervously, keeping an eye on the guards. For a moment, everything seemed to go smoothly. But then one of the aliens turned its head sharply, its mandibles clicking in suspicion. "What was that?" It hissed, taking a step toward Mia. Alex didn't hesitate. He charged forward, shouting to draw their attention. "Hey, over here." The aliens turned, their glowing eyes locking onto him. One of them let out a sharp screech and lunged, its claws slicing through the air. Alex ducked under the attack, swinging his metal shard with all his strength. It connected with the alien's arm, causing it to stagger back with a pained hiss. The second alien moved to flank him, but Alex spun around, using the momentum to slam the shard into its side. The blow wasn't fatal, but it was enough to make the creature stumble. Meanwhile, Mia worked frantically at the panel, her hands trembling slightly. With a final press, the circular door slid open with a hiss, revealing the control room beyond. Bright lights flooded the corridor, momentarily blinding everyone. Alex seized the opportunity, grabbing Mia's arm and pulling her through the doorway, just as the aliens recovered. Inside the control room, the scene was chaotic. Strange, pulsating consoles lined the walls, covered in glowing symbols and shifting patterns. In the center of the room, a massive holographic display floated above a pedestal, showing a map of the ship and what looked like coordinates for Earth. Alex's stomach sank. These aliens weren't just curious, they had plans. "We need to sabotage this," Maya said urgently, already scanning the equipment. "If we can disable their navigation systems or engines, we might buy ourselves some time." Alex nodded, his mind racing. "Do it. I'll keep watch." As Mia got to work, Alex positioned himself near the door, ready to defend her if the aliens tried to break in. Sure enough, moments later, angry clicks and screeches echoed from the other side. The aliens pounded on the door, trying to force their way in. Alex tightened his grip on his weapon, his heart pounding. He didn't know how long they could hold out, but he wasn't going down without a fight. The first alien burst through the door, its claws raised high. Alex met it head-on, dodging its attacks and striking back with precision. Each blow was calculated, exploiting the aliens' blind spots. Behind him, Mia shouted, "Almost done." Alex gritted his teeth, pushing harder. If they could pull this off, they might actually stand a chance. But the aliens weren't giving up, and neither was he. The control room was a blur of motion and chaos. Alex fought with everything he had, his metal shard clanging against the aliens' claws as they clashed in a desperate struggle. The creature was strong, its movements fast and unpredictable, but Alex's training kicked in. He sidestepped one swipe, then drove the shard into the alien's glowing eye. It let out a piercing screech, stumbling back before collapsing to the floor. Before Alex could catch his breath, the second alien lunged at him, its mandibles snapping furiously. This one was bigger, angrier, and clearly determined to finish what its companion had started. Alex dodged the first attack, but the alien's tail whipped around, catching him in the side and sending him sprawling. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself to roll away just as the alien's claws splashed where he'd been moments before. "Alex," Mia shouted from across the room. Her voice was tense, her hands flying over the glowing console as she worked to disable the ship's systems. "I need 30 more seconds." Alex gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. He couldn't afford to fail now, not when they were so close. Grabbing the shard again, he forced himself to his feet, facing the alien with a defiant glare. "Come on, then," he growled, his voice steadier than he felt. The alien hissed, its glowing eyes narrowing as it prepared to strike. But Alex didn't wait for it to make the first move. Instead, he feinted to the left, drawing the alien's attention, then darted to the right, using the momentum to slam the shard into its leg. The alien stumbled, giving Alex just enough time to drive the makeshift weapon into its chest. It let out a guttural cry before collapsing, its body twitching faintly as the light in its eyes faded. Breathing heavily, Alex turned to check on Mia. She was still working frantically at the console, sweat beading on her forehead. "How much longer?" he asked, scanning the doorway for any more threats. 10 seconds, she replied, her fingers moving faster. "Just hold them off." As if on cue, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. More aliens were coming, this time a group of them. Alex cursed under his breath, tightening his grip on the shard. He couldn't fight all of them, not alone, but he wasn't about to give up either. Suddenly, the lights in the control room flickered violently, and a holographic display above the pedestal went dark. A loud alarm blared throughout the ship, accompanied by a deep rumbling that shook the walls. Maya stepped back from the console, a triumphant look on her face. "Done," she said. "Their navigation system is fried, and their engines are destabilizing." Alex allowed himself a brief smile, but there was no time to celebrate. The aliens were almost here, their angry clicks growing louder with each passing second. "Let's go," he said, grabbing Mia's arm. Together, they sprinted toward the far side of the room, searching for another way out. Behind them, the door burst open, and a swarm of aliens poured in. They screeched in fury, their glowing eyes fixed on Alex and Mia. One of them raised its clawed hand toward the console, trying to reverse the damage, but nothing happened. Their arrogance had cost them dearly. "There." Mia pointed to a narrow hatch near the ceiling. Without hesitation, Alex boosted her up, helping her climb through. Once she was safely inside, he followed, pulling the hatch closed behind them. The space beyond was tight and dark, but it led downward, away from the control room, and closer to freedom. As they crawled through the cramped passage, the ship continued to shake violently. Alarms screamed in the background, and the air grew hotter. Alex glanced at Mia, who looked just as exhausted as he felt. "What happens next?" he asked. "The engines will overload," she replied grimly. "We don't have much time to get out of here." Alex nodded, his resolve hardening. These aliens had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. But escaping wouldn't be easy. Ahead, the passage opened into another corridor, dimly lit and filled with smoke. Somewhere in the distance, Alex could see the faint outline of an escape pod bay. "We're not done yet," he muttered, gripping Maya's hand as they ran forward. The aliens might have been arrogant, but humans were fighters, and Alex wasn't going to stop until they were free, or until there was nothing left to fight for. The escape pod bay was a mess of flashing lights and sparking panels, the ship's systems failing one by one as the engines destabilized. Alex and Mia burst through the doorway, their lungs burning from the sprint. The air was thick with smoke, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Behind them, the angry screeches of the aliens echoed down the corridor, growing louder with every second. "There," Mia shouted, pointing to a row of pods along the far wall. They were small, sleek, and clearly designed for the insect-like aliens, but they would have to do. Alex didn't waste time questioning if they'd work for humans. He trusted Mia's judgment. She had gotten them this far, and he wasn't about to second-guess her now. As they reached the nearest pod, Alex scanned the controls. The symbols were alien, glowing faintly in shades of green and blue, but Mia stepped forward without hesitation. "I've seen these before," she said quickly, her fingers flying over the panel. "They're simple enough." Alex glanced over his shoulder, spotting the first wave of aliens rounding the corner. Their glowing eyes locked onto him, and they charged with terrifying speed. "Hurry," he urged, positioning himself between Mia and the advancing creatures. "I'm almost there," Maya replied, her voice strained but focused. With a final press, the pod's door hissed open. "Get in." Alex didn't argue. He climbed inside, pulling Mia in after him just as the first alien reached the pod. Its claws scraped against the metal frame, leaving deep gouges, but the door sealed shut before it could get inside. The interior was cramped, barely big enough for both of them, but Alex didn't care. They were safe, for now. "Can you launch it?" he asked, looking at Mia. She nodded, already working the controls. "Hold on tight." The pod shuddered as it detached from the ship, the force of the launch pressing Alex and Mia back into their seats. Through the small viewport, Alex watched the alien vessel grow smaller behind them. It was a chaotic sight. Flashing lights, bursts of flame, and plumes of smoke erupting from its hull. Then, with a deafening explosion, the ship disintegrated into a massive fireball, lighting up the void of space like a dying star. Mia let out a shaky breath, slumping back in her seat. "That should buy Earth some time," she said softly. Alex nodded, still staring at the wreckage. The aliens' arrogance had been their undoing, but he knew this wasn't the end. There were likely more ships, more of these creatures out there somewhere. Humanity wasn't safe yet, not by a long shot. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of the pod systems. Finally, Mia broke the quiet. "We did it," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Against all odds, we actually pulled it off." Alex managed a small smile. "Yeah, we did. But we couldn't have done it alone." Maya returned the smile, though hers was weaker, weighed down by exhaustion. "Still, I think we proved something to them, and to ourselves." Alex leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. His body ached, his mind raced, but for the first time since landing on that alien planet, he felt a flicker of hope. These creatures might be advanced, arrogant, and dangerous, but they weren't invincible. Humans had something they didn't: resilience. No matter how bad things got, humanity always found a way to fight back. The pod continued its journey through space, heading toward a distant signal that Mia hoped belonged to a human ship or outpost. As they drifted, Alex thought about what lay ahead. Earth needed to know about the threat, needed to prepare. And when the aliens came again, and they would, they'd find humanity ready. For now, though, Alex allowed himself a moment of peace. They had survived. Against overwhelming odds, they had won. and that was something worth holding on to. The escape pod drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its small engines humming faintly as it followed the signal Mia had detected. Inside, Alex and Mia sat in silence, their bodies exhausted but their minds racing. The adrenaline that had kept them going during their escape was fading, leaving behind a deep weariness that seeped into their bones. Yet neither of them could sleep, not with so much uncertainty ahead. "We should reach the signal in a few hours," Maya said finally, breaking the quiet. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, as if she wasn't sure what to say next. She glanced at Alex, who was staring out the small viewport at the endless expanse of stars. "Do you think it's one of ours?" Alex shrugged, his gaze still fixed on the distant pinpricks of light. "It's hard to say. Could be human, could be something else. Either way, we'll find out soon enough." Mia nodded, her fingers tapping nervously against the edge of her seat. "If it is human, what do we tell them?" "About the aliens, I mean." "The truth," Alex replied without hesitation. His tone was firm, resolute. "We tell them everything. The ambush, the ship, the invasion plans. They need to know what's coming." Mia sighed, leaning back in her seat. "And if they don't believe us? What if they think we're crazy or making it up?" "They'll believe us," Alex said, turning to look at her. There was a fire in his eyes, a determination that hadn't dimmed despite everything they'd been through. "We have proof, the sabotage, the explosion, the coordinates we saw in the control room. If nothing else, they'll listen because they have to." Mia didn't respond right away. Instead, she stared at the floor, her thoughts heavy. She knew Alex was right. They couldn't afford to keep this to themselves. Humanity needed to prepare, even if it meant facing fear and panic. But the weight of that responsibility felt overwhelming. Hours passed slowly, the silence between them broken only by the occasional beep of the pod's instruments. Finally, a faint glimmer appeared in the distance, growing brighter as they approached. It was a ship, the human ship. The relief that washed over Alex and Mia was immediate and profound. "It's the U.S. Endeavor," Maya said, reading the markings on the hull as they drew closer. Her voice trembled slightly, a mix of excitement and disbelief. "We're safe." The pod docked smoothly, guided by the ship's crew. When the hatch opened, Alex and Mia stepped out cautiously, squinting against the bright lights of the hangar bay. A group of soldiers rushed forward, weapons raised, but lowered them immediately when they recognized the pair as human. "Who are you?" one of the officers demanded, his tone sharp but not unkind. "What happened to your ship?" Alex exchanged a glance with Mia before stepping forward. "My name is Alex Carter, and this is Mia Lopez. We were part of a recon mission that went wrong." "The aliens." "Aliens," the officer interrupted, his brow furrowing. "What aliens?" Alex took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. "They call themselves the Zarnak. They attacked us, captured us, and planned to invade Earth. We managed to escape, but they're out there, and they're coming." The hangar fell silent, the weight of Alex's words sinking in. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the officer straightened, his expression grim. "Take them to command. We need to hear everything." As they were led away, Maya leaned closer to Alex. "Do you think they'll listen?" "They'll have to," Alex replied quietly. "Because if they don't, none of us will survive." In the hours that followed, Alex and Mia recounted their story in detail, showing maps, coordinates, and descriptions of the alien technology. The crew listened intently, their faces growing more serious with each passing minute. By the end, there was no doubt in anyone's mind. Humanity was facing a threat unlike any it had encountered before. Preparations began immediately. Ships were recalled, defenses fortified, and warnings sent to every corner of Earth. Alex and Mia watched from the command center, their hearts heavy but hopeful. They had done all they could. Now it was up to humanity to rise to the challenge. As Alex gazed at the stars once more, he felt a strange sense of calm. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. But one thing was certain: when the Zarnak returned, they wouldn't find humanity unprepared. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity as humanity prepared for the inevitable. News of the alien threat spread quickly, sparking fear and determination in equal measure. Governments around the world set aside their differences, uniting under a single goal: survival. Scientists worked tirelessly to analyze the data Alex and Mia had brought back, while military forces trained for battles unlike anything they had ever faced. Earth was no longer just a planet, it was a fortress. Alex stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Endeavour, staring out at the stars. The ship was now part of a massive fleet stationed near Earth's orbit, ready to intercept any incoming threats. Behind him, Mia approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Alex with a small smile. "You've been up here a lot lately," she said softly. "Just thinking," Alex replied, taking the cup. He sipped the hot liquid, letting its warmth steady him. "About everything that's happened and what's coming." Mia nodded, leaning against the railing beside him. "It's hard not to think about it. We've seen them, Alex. We know what they're capable of. And we know what we're capable of too," Alex said firmly. His voice carried a quiet confidence, born from everything they had endured. "They underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again, but neither will we." Mia looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you really think we can win? I mean, they're so advanced. We have something they don't," Alex said, turning to face her. "We adapt. No matter how bad things get, we find a way to keep going. That's why we're still here." Mia didn't respond right away. Instead, she gazed out at the stars, her mind replaying every moment of their escape. The chaos, the fear, the triumph. She had doubted herself more times than she could count, but somehow they had made it through. And now humanity was doing the same, preparing, fighting, refusing to give up. Back on Earth, cities buzzed with activity. Factories churned out weapons and ships at an unprecedented rate, while civilians volunteered in droves to support the war effort. Schools were converted into training centers, and even children learned basic survival skills. Humanity wasn't just preparing for battle, it was preparing to defend its home, its future, and everything it held dear. In space, the fleet conducted drills daily, testing strategies and refining tactics. Pilots practiced maneuvers designed to exploit the aliens' weaknesses, while engineers worked to replicate the Zarnak's organic technology. Every piece of information Alex and Mia had provided was studied, dissected, and turned into actionable plans. Humanity wasn't just reacting, it was adapting. One evening, as Alex and Mia sat together watching the sunset from the ship's viewport, a sudden alert blared through the corridors. Both of them sprang to their feet, rushing to the command center. When they arrived, the room was alive with tension. A scout ship had detected movement near the edge of the solar system. A fleet of alien vessels, larger than anyone had anticipated. "They're here," the captain said grimly, his eyes scanning the monitors. "All ships, prepare for engagement." Alex felt a surge of adrenaline, but also a strange sense of calm. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. He glanced at Mia, who gave him a determined nod. Together, they took their places among the crew, ready to do whatever it took to protect their world. As the human fleet moved into position, Alex gripped the edge of the console, his jaw set. The Zarnak thought they were invincible, but they had never truly understood humanity. They had mocked Alex once, calling him weak and insignificant. Now he would show them just how wrong they were. The battle began with a flash of light, the first shots fired across the void. Explosions lit up the darkness, shaking the ships with their force. But humanity fought back fiercely, using every trick, every strategy they had learned. For every setback, there was a counterattack. For every loss, a renewed determination. And as the fight raged on, Alex allowed himself a small smile. The Zarnak had made their move, but so had humanity. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. They would not go down without a fight.